Hello again out there in YouTube land. I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide and the co-founder of EnglishAnyone.com. And this is episode 2 of The Business of Teaching. In this video, if you haven't seen the first one, the episode 1 in this series, this is talking about how I do what I do, how I teach online, how the business works and that kind of thing, so that if you are a business owner yourself, or if you're wanting to learn how to do something, or even if you just have something you'd like to teach and help people learn, this series will teach you how to do that. And the more video series, the more views this video gets, the faster I will produce new episodes of it. So in the first episode, or the first video, we were talking about market intelligence and why teach. So if you're not familiar with teaching, or why it's such an important thing, why everyone really, it doesn't matter what business you're in, whether it's a physical store, maybe you have just a tiny location in one place or something, or if you're online already and doing things, it doesn't matter. The educational part of what you do, it does a great service helping people in your market, and it also positions you as an expert at what you do. Now again, just before we get into the actual video content today, I wanted to remind people that I may be talking a little bit faster in this video. This is not necessarily for English learners, although there's a lot of great information here for English learners that's applicable for your everyday life, not just for developing a business or something like that. But just so you know, this won't be a kind of a typical English lesson. I'll just be talking again about what I do and explaining, kind of going through the steps of why education is an important thing. And then in this video, we'll be talking more specifically about being the best. So there will be some kind of vocabulary and other things like that that'll be helpful, but don't be upset if you're looking for an English lesson and this is not an English lesson. But on that point, if you are an English learner, there's always a way to learn something, so you can definitely use this as an English lesson to learn a lot of great vocabulary, even if it's not, specifically an English lesson. Anyway, I won't belabor the point. I won't continue to talk too much about that, but I just wanted to make that clear at the beginning, because this series is not necessarily for English learners only. Anyway, so continuing on with what we were talking about before, this is really such a complicated topic, but it's actually such a very simple thing at the same time. And if you get the idea right, this idea of being the best or being #1 at what you do, then that's what's really #1, going to make things a lot easier for you. But #2, make it much more fun for you to do business, or whatever that thing happens to be. Now there's a lot of ways I could get into describing this, but just to give a very simple example of any kind of market, and I'll talk more specifically about the English learning market, or the language learning market, which the English learning market is a part of, but every market functions in the same way, and people function in the same way, and we've been thinking the same way for however many thousands of years that people have been around. So if you understand the way people work and the way the mind works, which I'll talk about in this video, then that will give you the edge in whatever market it is you're in. So again, I'll be talking more specifically about my market just because I know more about it, but the same principles are for any market, and it doesn't matter. Now, if I just look at my hand for an example, if I want to talk about my market specifically, we've got kind of language learning down here, and as you move up the tree, we start branching off into different parts of that. And each one of these parts may be like learning French, or learning English, or learning Japanese, or learning Portuguese, or Chinese, or whatever. These are all sub-markets, and then as you get kind of smaller and smaller, these are called niches. To have a niche just means a kind of particular area that you hold. So maybe a niche, like in a local area, could be if you have a local business and you teach the violin, and nobody else in the area teaches the violin. So you are the #1 person in that niche or that area. Now, we design these things in business because they work the exact same way in the animal kingdom. So if you look at plants and animals, you have a particular niche or a market, or whatever that that ecological or land area happens to be. So you could have a particular jungle that's kind of like the whole area, and then you've got particular niches in that, like animals that just focus on eating fruit, or animals that eat other animals, or animals that only live on one particular flower. Now, each one of these things isn't necessarily more powerful than the others or more important than the others, but each finds a particular niche that's important to them. Now, a lot of people, they obviously want to get to like be like the number one thing. Like when you think of, finance or whatever, there's like one top person that you think of, and then, other people are kind of in niches. And I'll talk a bit more about this idea. Kind of the higher up you go, the more money you can make, but there's also more competition. So there's a trade-off there where maybe you can do more, but it's a little bit more competitive, that kind of thing. And it's much more difficult to become the number one person in a market like that unless you are first at that thing. So now I want to talk about being first and why it's such an important thing to do. When you think about the mind generally, like if I ask you to think about like a soft drink, something like that, like a pop or a soda, these are just different words for the same thing, but you would probably think Coca-Cola. And again, it kind of depends on where you live, but like most people in America, they would probably think Coca-Cola first. Or if I say, name me a car, maybe they would say Ford. Or if I say maybe name me like an internet search engine, most people would say Google. Now, this idea of what you think of first, this is getting into the mind, and that's the most important thing. It's not necessarily being the actual first to do that thing, because Yahoo came along before Google did. So Yahoo, this is another internet search company if you're not already familiar. So Yahoo was created first, they had more advertising, and then Google came along after Yahoo. But what happened is that Yahoo was search first, but then they expanded into all these other things. And if you look at the two different web pages, Yahoo has all this stuff. They've got weather and financial information and all these other things. The websites are the complete opposite. So Google has become number one in search because that's what they focused on. And because of that, they became first in mind. So it's not important, again, to be the first at one particular thing. And also it depends on, what that particular thing is. Because obviously if you're producing something or trying to be number one at something that your market doesn't care about, if you're not actually solving a problem, then it doesn't really matter. So the point really is to be first in mind about doing something. So not necessarily the first to do it, because you could have a large company that has a lot of money and a small company that maybe does something first, but the larger company has advertising money to make a big campaign that says like, we're the best at this thing. Now, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about the perception, the idea that people have. So when you think of search, you think of Google. It's your top of mind thing. Now, most people, when they're thinking of any category of thing, like a category could be just a group of a particular product or a particular service. So if I think internet search, maybe I've got Google, then Yahoo, then maybe one or two more. But most people can't think of more than maybe 2 or 3 examples. And that's why there's usually just 2 or 3 top players or top businesses or top people, whatever that thing is, in a particular market. So if you have, search or whatever, you've got Google that takes a large percent, maybe Yahoo takes another percent, and then you've got all these other smaller companies over here that are working really hard and trying to do something. And that's where, a lot of people are in the business world. And that's actually where I happened to be when I first started. So if I can kind of take this more to talking about English and teaching in my market or helping people learn in my market, if you think about like learning English, now I want to be the best at whatever it is I'm doing, because if I'm not the best, then why would you bother learning with me? So maybe you're not personally learning with me, but you should be thinking the same way about your particular market. So maybe you play the drums, or maybe you play the flute, or you're teaching people how to bake or something like that. If you're not the best at what that thing is, you're not going to attract people. And the only way you can do that is to communicate the fact that you're the best in that thing. And so that's what this video is about. Now, as far as my story goes, when thinking about getting into the English teaching market, that kind of thing, thinking about teaching online, I began as a regular teacher just in the classroom, and I really enjoyed teaching. So I thought, well, if I can teach 1 million people instead of just 30 in a classroom, why don't I do that? So I get online and I start thinking about, well, I don't really know anything about marketing. All the things that I'm trying to help you learn now are things that I've learned along the way in the process of building my own business and helping a lot of people learn English. But when I began, I considered myself an English teacher. But really, if you think about being an English teacher, there's nothing different about that. And there's no way I can say that, yes, I am the number one English teacher in the world. It's impossible to say that because there are so many other people that, even if they are better than me or if they're not better than me, the idea of me being number one, I am not the first person everyone in the world thinks of when they think of like English teachers. Now, maybe I have a lot of people that they think I'm the best, and that's great if they do. Thank you very much if that's true. But I can't say that to people. It doesn't make any sense. It wouldn't be true. That would be like Yahoo just saying, well, we're number one in search when they're clearly not. So they began that way, but they lost that when they try to get into other things. And that's kind of a subject of a different video. So I want to stay focused on being the best at whatever your particular thing is. So when I got online and I started thinking about that, I kind of did it the wrong way. I do everything the wrong way when I first get started, but maybe that's part of the secret to my success. I don't really have a fear of failing, so I just get out there and try different things and see what happens. Even this video series, maybe people won't like it. You never know. But I thought it would be good information to share, and I have no problem getting that out there and even, revealing more about my business and what I do. So anyway, when I get into the market, I was, if you actually look back at the YouTube channel, so this English Anyone YouTube channel on right here on YouTube, you'll see like the first video series we created was phonics, and that's because I had a lot of classes where I was teaching little kids, and I really liked focusing on reading. I'll actually be coming back to that with a new app that I'm creating right now, and that will be released very soon, or if you're watching this in the future, it's already out, so you should check it out. It's called Scroll Phonics. But anyway, so I started doing that, and then I created other videos that were talking about, verbs or phrasal verbs or other things like that. But I had no like unifying idea about what I was. And I thought more about, what it is I actually do. And it took me about 2 years, maybe longer than that, while I was teaching online and trying to work with people and figuring out what the actual problem in the market was. And really the problem for me specifically in this particular niche in English, again, I'm not focused on entire learning English because there's so many different parts of that. It would be really difficult for a small company like mine to try to get into all these markets, like English for little kids and English for slightly older people, or for grandparents or whatever, business English, that kind of thing. So I don't worry about doing all that. The only thing I focus on for this part of the market is how I can help people that can already read, write, and speak a little bit actually speak fluently. So what they really need, and this is the reason again why I do this, is because I actually went through the same problem as I was learning to get fluent in Japanese. So I learned it the wrong way, which created a whole bunch of problems for me about like trying to translate in my head before I speak, or not pronouncing words properly, not being able to understand native speakers when they spoke to me. So I had the exact same problems that English learners have. It's really the same thing because we're all learning the language in the same traditional way. So I said, okay, I need to first figure out how to learn the language myself. So when I was learning Japanese, and now I speak Japanese fluently, and obviously I still, I have problems from time to time. I'm learning new words all the time, but because I learned how to do it the right way, I changed from learning the traditional way to starting to learn in a different way. I realized like what I'm actually doing and how I can actually really help people is as an English fluency guide. Now this idea of being an English fluency guide, I can be the number one person in the world at that thing because I created the category. Now this is, I get a lot of questions from people. This number one insight right here, it really benefited my business, not only like in sales, that kind of thing, but also for really focusing on how I can help people, because it's really much more clear when I say, oh, I'm an English fluency guide that does this, this, and this, rather than just saying I'm an English teacher. So it's easier for people to understand that way, even if I have to kind of explain what an English fluency guide does. But if I just say I'm an English teacher, I'm in the same category as everybody else. And I can't like charge higher prices because people have a certain idea of what an English teacher costs. Like in Japan, if you want to be a teacher at a local cafe or something, it's maybe like $30 an hour, roughly, something like that. And if you say, oh, I'm an English teacher, but I'm going to charge you $100 an hour, people would say, well, why would I do that? It's because you haven't differentiated yourself. And this is the number one piece of advice from this video that I'd like you to remember. Whatever your business is, if you're not number one in that particular thing, what piece of that can you get into that you can be number one in? And there's no problem with creating an entirely new thing which you can become that number one person in. So let's say we had maybe many years ago, the first computers were really giant computers, and you would have a few companies that are really powerful in that. But then some new companies create a smaller computer called like a mini computer or something like that. And then those people that created that first, they get to dominate that market because they were the first ones to create that, and the first, more importantly, to become in mind. So the first person when you think mini computer is this company, that kind of thing. Now, another company, maybe they decide like, they're making mini computers, but they're the second or the third in that market. So they decide to create a laptop computer, and they create a new category of that thing. So you can take a position in a category, like Starbucks is a good example. So they're selling coffee, but they're selling high-end coffee. And then they change their marketing and their messaging and all of that such that they can be number one in that thing. Now, maybe Starbucks is like the number one coffee seller in the world, but actually I think that's McDonald's right now. But McDonald's, they've got so many more stores and they're able to sell more coffee. But Starbucks is number one in that like upper class of coffee. So you got the same thing with cars. You would take a car company that's got, maybe they're selling cars that are not so, great or whatever, just regular economical cars. And then they try to create something that's in a different market. So maybe they want to create like luxury cars, something like that. So you have like a Japanese Japanese car manufacturers like Toyota. That's what I'm thinking, toy. So they created Lexus. And then they were able to take that and then bring that to America. So they didn't use the same brand for that. It still wasn't Toyota when they were giving that back to the Americans, when they were saying, hey, we've got this luxury car now. They created a new brand because of that. Now, this is also a separate idea. It's the same problem that Yahoo had. So Yahoo, they diversified. And as soon as you start to diversify, what you're known for begins to disappear. And then other people can come in and take that from your market. So whatever your thing is, you want to focus on that. And if you want to decide to create something new, you create a new company for that thing in the same way that Toyota created Lexus. Or that, whatever company produces like some other thing that's in a different market, that kind of thing. So it's best not for Toyota to try to make more expensive cars. You want to create a whole new brand that has that particular top of mind. Yes, this is a luxury car brand, and so we're going to buy cars from there if we want a luxury car. So for this video, what I'd really like you to remember, whatever your particular trade or your business or anything like that, or if you want to get started, like let's say you're trying to get started new in the English teaching market. So you want to get into English teaching. It's really impossible to say you're the number one English teacher, so don't even call yourself an English teacher. You would call yourself something else, and I don't really know what that would be, but think about what's available and what you could really focus on. So you could be, if English teacher is not such a bad thing, and again, it's not a bad thing to be an English teacher, but you want to diversify, or really not diversify, but you want to specialize in a particular thing. So you could be focusing on just like pronunciation. And so as an example, Rachel's English right here on YouTube. This is another great teacher that goes out and just focuses on pronunciation. And so that's her thing. She does a few other things, but she's known for pronunciation, and specifically American English pronunciation. She also got started on YouTube maybe a couple of years ago. So even like a couple of years before I got started. So looking at someone like that, like she did everything correctly. She picked a specific niche where she could get into, and something that, there was a particular problem in the market about that thing. People wanted to sound more native. They wanted to improve their pronunciation. And that's why she's able to teach the way she does successfully, because she picked a specific niche. Now, somebody else that's also quite big in this particular space is AJ Hogue. I've never met him personally, but he's a great guy. From what I've heard, we actually have mutual friends. But actually, he was really instrumental in getting people, especially like myself. I mean, he was an influence on me to get me online and to get me start, teaching people using online marketing techniques, and that's really what made him famous. So he's borrowing from Tony Robbins and other internet marketers such that he can bring those ideas about marketing to the online teaching space, and then he's taking that and kind of changing it in his own way and making something else. So he got started quite a few years ago as well, and that's why he's also able to benefit, because being that first in mind, people recognizing him as an English teacher, that's also, maybe you could put him in the category of being like first in like online teaching, something like that. So as opposed to something like Rosetta Stone, which is a really large company, you're not known for one specific person, you're known as the brand Rosetta Stone. He is his own brand in and of himself. So I am the same way, but I would not consider myself an English teacher anymore, because I don't just, teach things in the way that people normally do, where we have a list of things on a whiteboard. You look at most English teaching, videos on YouTube, and it's basically the same thing. We're going to look at some whiteboard things, and it's the same thing you would see in a classroom. So what I try to do is actually guide people from the level that they are currently to fluency, and you have to go through a couple of steps to do that. And these are the exact same steps I took when I was trying to get fluent myself. Now, because AJ Hoge calls himself an English teacher, he dresses like one. So all of the parts of that, all of the marketing, all of these other things, they come from deciding what you're going to be. So he got into the market early enough that he could call himself an English teacher and be successful at that. So he also wears a suit and a tie. A lot of times you will never see me wearing a suit and tie, because a guide wouldn't wear a suit and tie. A guide would just be a regular person that's trying to help you, like a friend would help you, walking along with you as you try to get fluent, showing you the things you shouldn't be doing, showing you the things you should be doing, and not just teaching you the language. So AJ Hoge does a great job, and is same with Rachel and many other people that have particular niches. But all of these things, they're successful at what they do because they're number one, or they're really like top in mind for many people. So if you're just getting into that market, whatever that happens to be, again, I'll go back to a guy emailed me about, he has like a drum program. So he teaches drumming lessons. And so the advice I would give to him is like, can you be the number one drummer in your area? And if not, can you be the number one drummer of a particular kind of thing? So I focus on just like one particular kind of drumming, and I do that really well. And again, this is the same thing where we see like there are many different birds, but there's like a flamingo and an eagle and a hummingbird. These are all different kinds of birds that are focused on a specific niche. And the more you can focus on something, the more you can become the number one at that thing. So I am the world's number one English fluency guide, not just because I said it, but because I created the category. So I knew I couldn't be the number one English teacher, because people wouldn't believe me if I said that. But if I create something new, and it's actually something that the market can benefit from, then that's what's really going to help, not only me, but also like all the people that I can help learn, because it's presenting them with an idea of, you don't want to learn this way, you want to be learning this way, the same way that I learned, and that's why I teach the way I do. So whatever it is your niche might be, you always want to be thinking about being the best in that particular thing. And if you can't be the best in the larger niche, then at least start, just so you can, and again, like, you don't have to stop at one particular niche, but find a particular thing. We call this like a wedge or a beachhead, where you can get in and you can be number one at that thing, and then begin to grow out from there. But just make sure when you are growing out that you don't do what Yahoo did, which is try to grow out with the same company and try to do sports and weather and all these other things. You should be like Google, that has one particular thing. They've got search, and then they create other products like that. So it's the same kind of thing like Apple. Apple is a company, but they've got different brands. So each of those things, like the iPhone or the iPad, these aren't individual companies. These are very powerful brands that Apple has. And if you can start creating these things, that's what's really going to help you be successful. So before, especially if you're, I guess I'll just make this a statement for everybody. If you are in a business already and you are not number one at your thing, stop what you are doing and find something that you can be the best at. It doesn't matter if you have to create your own category like I did. That's certainly fine, and it's working really well for me, and it's very logical why it would work, because you're not going to convince people that what you're doing is better. You have to create something different, because really people won't believe it if you just say, well, my product is better than that other one. They will say, well, why are you not selling as well as that other person? Now, there could be lots of good reasons why that happens. So going back to like the drummer example, maybe he is really the best drummer or whatever, but if he's not known for being the best drummer, it won't matter. So you have to create something new such that you can create a category that you can be number one in, and then you can go from there about expanding out into other things. So whatever your niche is, I'm trying to say this over and over again because it's such an important thing. I became an English fluency guide even before I knew what an English fluency guide was. I thought about what the market needed. The market needed a particular kind of training that would lead them from where they are to where they need to be. So this isn't just about learning vocabulary or improving your pronunciation. It's really a whole system of things that you need to do in order to get fluent, because speaking another language fluently is actually a pretty complicated process. And it's even more complicated if you've spent many years learning it the wrong way, and now you got to go back and kind of unlearn all of the things you learned and create the new habits that you need in order to get fluent. So as I realized what I was doing, I was thinking like, oh, I'm not really an English teacher, I'm an English fluency guide. And so that idea took shape, and that's why I decided to call myself that. So I am the #1 English fluency guide, and I can say that proudly because I'm the #1. I'm the only person in the category. I created it myself. And now as I begin to grow that category, I'm sure other people will follow into the market I'm creating, and more people will call themselves English fluency guides as well. Now this is kind of a separate idea, but going into the future, the more people that begin calling themselves English fluency guides, the more I become successful at what I do, because I've created a new category and I actually want competition to come in and start, teaching other people in the same way I do, because it strengthens the idea of an English fluency guide as a thing, and also because I'm #1, new people come in and they continue to push me higher and higher. So this is the same thing that happens in every niche. Anytime you create something new, you will have other people that come in and try to follow that thing, but it only makes it more difficult for them and better for the person that already did it. So whatever you're doing, don't try to push somebody else's market up something. Try to make your own market. It's a little bit more difficult when you're having to educate people what that thing is, but I guarantee you it's much better to focus on one particular thing that you can be best at, that you can be known, that you can be #1 in the mind for, than trying to be, not so good at following what somebody else is doing. The more you follow, the more difficult it is for you to follow the market itself. So always remember, you have to create something that's new and different, but it also has to be something that's valued by the market. So if I say, hey, I'm the #1 person that can speak English and stand on my head, do you think anybody cares about that? It's #1 in that category, but who gives a shit, really? I'm sorry for the cursing, but really I want you to really focus on this idea. You want to be paying attention to the market, as I talked about in the previous video, and then really following what the market says and figuring out how you can position yourself in such a way that you can help people, but be at the top end of something like that. There's just so many great reasons why you'd want to be #1 at something. Another great reason is that you get to dictate what the price is of that thing. So if all these other people are English teachers and they're all charging $30 an hour, but if I come in and say, well, I'm an English fluency guide, I do things in a different way, and the price that I charge is double what everybody else charges. Now actually, like the current prices, and maybe prices change for things, but AJ Hogue, he actually charges less than I do. So he has a program that's cheaper than mine, and that's fine. I'm happy to have him have a cheaper program than mine, and other people, maybe they have more expensive programs than mine. They have a particular thing that they want to teach, or a particular market niche that they're focusing on, and things like that change. But the point to remember here is that if you take something and create a new category for it, people don't really know how to evaluate that thing. So it becomes something you can do. You get to lead the people in that market to explain what they do. Now, I don't just charge higher prices because I'm in a new market and I'm just feeling like charging more. We actually work really hard at the things we produce. And so the lessons we create are very valuable, and they're also very different from what a normal English lesson would be like. So it's a system of things. And again, I don't want to talk too much about the actual lessons I produce, but really just this idea of thinking more about what you can be #1 in. And regardless if you have a business or not, maybe you just want to be, you're like a regular employee looking for a job. How can you communicate the fact that you are #1 at whatever that job market, or that particular job? If you're an employee looking to get a job at a particular place, how can you be #1 to try to get that job, to get hired? So all these things are things you should be thinking about, but the most important, how can you be #1 in something if you're not #1 already? Can you like niche down, or can you niche up? Like, can you create a more expensive, a more luxury brand of whatever it is you produce? Like, instead of drum lessons for little kids, this is like drum lessons for, like rich people or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. You can create whatever you want to, and that's the whole beauty about trying to do something different. So don't follow other people. I know a lot of teachers, they actually they follow me and they actually buy my lessons, and I think that's great for them learning how to do it. So I'll just speak specifically to those people. Try to pay attention to what I'm doing on the foundational level. Don't like copy exactly what I'm doing, the way I'm teaching, or the steps I use, or the actual like words I use, the language I use. Follow the very fundamental thing, which is what I'm teaching now, which is trying to be number one at something, creating a new category such that you can do the same thing. So don't make the same mistake. Most people make the same mistake I made, which is like actually trying to follow somebody else. And when you do that, you're following the leader of the market instead of listening to the market. And you always want to be focused on the market. So the leader of a market is always focused on the market itself, and everybody else follows the leader. So which do you want to be? Do you want to be the person that's connected to the market? Because that person is the one getting all the great ideas about what to make. I'm not a genius. I'm not coming up with lots of different things. Again, the idea of an English fluency guide came from my market. There is a specific problem in the market that they need solved. So it's a very painful problem for a lot of people. And I was already doing that kind of thing, but the more I thought about it, yeah, like an English fluency guide, that makes a lot of sense. And so that's what I can use actually to communicate that I know the solution that people need for that particular problem. So think about the thing that you need to do so that you can be number one while also solving a painful problem in your market, and then we'll talk about more things in the next episode in this series. Hopefully I didn't talk too much. This is such an important and powerful thing, and it definitely changed my business, and I hope it can change yours. Or if you're just getting started, think about being able to teach people, as we talked about in the previous video in this series, and then go out and start thinking about how you can be the best at whatever it is you do. And again, it doesn't matter, like, even I'll give you one more example. This is like from sports. Think about all the different body types out there. Maybe the first sport was basketball. I mean, it wasn't, but let's just say the first sport was basketball. So in that case, only like really tall people could compete in that sport. So you've got all these other people that are saying like, well, forget basketball. I want to compete at something too. So you got shorter people, maybe they create wrestling, or other people that create, volleyball, or maybe they create, baseball or something like that. It's always people looking to create something new that they can be the best at that thing. And business is the exact same way. So maybe like really tiny guys, they become jockeys and do horse racing or something like that. But there's always something new to create. And if you can find a market that's interested in that thing, that's where you get the real power, the real money, the real fame, all those other things. I mean, I don't really care about being famous, but just the same, the more you can be number one at something and solve a problem that your market has, whoop, that intersection right there, that's what creates success. You do anything else, like producing products that your market doesn't care about, or not being number one in that thing, you're going to have much more I guess a real lack of success. And I've definitely done that before. I've definitely gone through the experience of not creating something that the market wanted. I've done that many times, and how many times have maybe you've done the same thing. And the only reason that happens is because either we're trying to follow other people or we're not trying to follow the market. But either way, if you can follow the market, do what they do, and pay attention to what the market is asking for. You don't have to ask them what they want, but pay attention to what their problems are, and then try to be the best at what that is so you can solve that. Well, I hope that's been an interesting video for you, just revealing a little bit more about myself and the English market and other things like that. If you have questions, you can ask them down below, or you can also click on the link. There'll be one link in this video. There'll be a tiny little icon. It's like a circle with a dot in it. This is a new thing YouTube is doing. It's called Cards, and this is for people watching on mobile. So if you're watching this on mobile, you can click on that to go to our site, where you can maybe ask a few questions about business as well, if you'd like to learn more about that. I don't necessarily plan on creating a course for this. I really just like sharing the information, and other people are kind of doing it anyway, but I just thought I'd give my perspective on it. So if you click on the link in this video, you can go to that. So either in mobile, in the upper left hand corner of your screen, I believe. Yes, it should be up here, I think. If not, maybe I'm crazy, but so you can click on that. or click on the annotation that says click here, and you can go to learn more about that. Anyway, I won't keep talking forever. I like to keep talking, but we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.